Well, all right. The crowd hushed on its own. Love to hear that. We'll get going. So I call to order the June 16th meeting of the Rules Committee and the final one in this council year. Let's start with introductions. First, Mr. Dennis.
Garrett Dennis, Administration.
Eli Jimenez, Council Research.
Carla Lopera, Office of General Counsel.
Philip Peterson, Council Auditor's Office.
Michael Boylan, District 6.
Terrence Freeman, at-large, Group 1.
Nick Howland, at-large, Group 3.
Good afternoon. Chris Miller, at-large, Group 5.
Mike Gay, District 2.
Matt Carlucci, at-large, Group 4. And good afternoon.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We will take the two appointments first on the agenda, then we'll start at the top of the agenda. And Council President-elect Carrico is asked to be here for item number 9, which is 2025-0385. So we'll move around the agenda to make sure that we don't take that up until he gets here. So with that, let's start with the appointees. We'll go first to page 5, item number 6. That's 2025-0357. The appointment of Ms. Deborah O'Neill to the Opioid and Substance Use Disorder Grants Committee. Ms. O'Neill, if you don't mind coming up. Introduce yourself, name, address, your background, and your interest in the role, please.
Absolutely. Thank you for allowing me to come here. My name is Deborah O'Neill. I'm Vice President of Community Support Services for Mental Health Resource Center. I live at 12923 Helm Drive, Jacksonville, Florida. Lifelong resident of Duval County. My interest in this committee is because most citizens in Duval County have been impacted by opioid addiction or use by a family member, a friend, even colleagues. I feel very strongly that we have an opportunity to help people in their recovery and leave that behind them. I have personal experience in my family where my niece abused opioids for 20 years, and now she is going on 9.5 years sober. And so I firmly do believe we have an opportunity to use these funds to be able to help the citizens of Jacksonville achieve recovery.
All right. Thank you, Ms. O'Neill. Any comments from anyone on the committee? All right, thank you. You are highly qualified for this role, both with your experience and the expertise you bring to it. So really appreciate you wanting to volunteer for the Opioid and Substance Use Disorder Grants Committee.
All right, thank you very much.
With that, seeing no other speakers, let's open the ballot and record your vote.
6 yeas, 0 nays.
By unanimous vote, 2025-0357 passes. And Ms. O'Neill, and for Dr. Jarambi coming up, and any other appointments we may have. So your formal appointment will be next Tuesday on June 24th in the council meeting. And if you're there, you'll be recognized. Although attendance is not mandatory, you're welcome to attend. Thank you very much for volunteering. All right, with that, let's move to page 6, item number 7. There's an amendment on 2025-0358. We have an amendment and a second. And Mr. Peterson, please explain.
Through the chair to the committee, the amendment will revise the language to reflect the reappointment of Dr. Joranby, revise the substantial business interest to reflect that she will be serving as the Chief Medical Officer at a new mental health and substance abuse disorder clinic located in Duval County and opening this summer, and there are various Scrivener's errors that need to be corrected.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Peterson? Seeing none, let's vote verbally on the amendment. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All against say no. The amendment passes. We have a motion and a second on the bill as amended. Dr. Jarambi, welcome. Please introduce yourself, name, address, a little bit about your experience and interest in the role, please.
Thank you for having me. I am Dr. Lanty Elizabeth Joranby, and my residence is 1612 Plantation Oaks Lane, Fernandina Beach, Florida. I have lived in the Northeast Florida area for the last 6 years, but I am from South Florida. I am an addiction psychiatrist by training, and I have been in the field for 15 years plus. I currently, in the local area, work at Volunteers in Medicine, and I do some other community work. I had recently served as Chief Medical Officer for Lakeview Health, and having left that role last August, am now working with my business partner, Steve Gold, previous owner of Refresh Mental Health, on developing a mental health substance use clinic here in Duval County. I have served over the last 2 years on the Opioid Grant Committee, both as chairman and as a member, and I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm grateful to be able to give back. I think what the Grant Committee is doing is really meaningful, and it's really targeting the 3 things that we know are so important: is prevention, treatment, and then aftercare education.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Dranby. And we have a speaker in the queue, Mr. Freeman. I just want to say before we take this vote, luckily none of them are on this. I skipped over public comment, and I think that's why Mr. Nooney is back there waving his arms. So once we're done with the appointments, seeing none of the public comment are on the appointments, we'll take public comment, and then we'll move forward to the agenda. We have Mr. Freeman on the queue, followed by Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And through the chair to Ms. LaPera, I wanted to go on record. I'm in support of this appointment. She did mention that she lives in Fernandina and outside of the area, and I just wanted to go on record of how this is different from what you all saw me oppose in the past.
Through the chair to Councilmember Freeman and to the committee. So this board falls under Chapter 50 of our ordinance code, and each appointee has to either meet the residency requirement or establish substantial economic or philanthropic business interest within Duval County. It's an either-or situation, which is different from the DIA situation we saw in the past, which had a strict residency requirement prior to your legislation, Councilmember Freeman.
Okay, over to Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to Dr. Jornby, thank you for continuing to want to serve and provide your expertise and be able to help us out in this very critical area. The only question I had was, I see, because obviously you're very qualified, there's no concerns there. I just was wondering, from the attendance record that we have here, you were only able to attend 12 of the 20 sessions that were held, 60%. Is there a concern, and have you addressed those things to be able to attend the majority of the meetings?
Thank you, sir. I have had to alter my schedule because I do travel quite a bit for work, but I have altered it so I can attend in person. I will be there next week if I'm allowed to be back on the committee, and I have blocked out all those committee meetings going forward. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other speakers, let's open the ballot and record your vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, by unanimous vote, Dr. Lanty Duranby is up for formal approval next Tuesday night for the Opioid and Substance Abuse Disorder Grants Committee. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, before we go to public comment, we have one more item. If we go to page 14, item number 17, Mr. Peterson, this is the appointment of Josh Martino to KHA, but you wanted to speak about it even though it's on second read.
Yes, sir. Through the chair to the committee. Excuse me. Mr. Martino is not a Duval County resident. Therefore, the committee, prior to the appointee appearing before you for their appointment, the sponsor of the legislation is supposed to justify the business or philanthropic interest, and y'all make that determination so that it's not done prior to or at the meeting in which the attendee is appearing. And so that attendee would be showing up at the next Rules Committee meeting.
Okay, so you need us to ask the administration to justify it. All right, Mr. Dennis.
Through the chair to the committee, thank you for allowing us to share Mr. Martino's extensive business interests. He's the president and legal counsel for Bono's Barbecue. He and his family, they're very involved in the philanthropic community here, such as Jacksonville Zoo, Tiger Academy, Operation New Hope. He's also the chairman of Feeding Northeast Florida, and he serves on the advisory board at the College of Business for Jacksonville University, and he's a member of the UNF Affairs, Community Council, and Taylor Leadership Institute. You all know, Bono's is a local business that's been around since 1949, and we think he'll be a great asset to the Kids Hope Alliance board, and we hope that you all will agree and allow his appointment to move forward.
Mr. Peterson, you need any kind of vote, or is this just consensus, or all you needed was the justification stated on the record?
Through the chair, or to the chair, no, just wanted y'all to be aware so that if you had further questions for Mr. Dennis or the mayor's office in relation to the appointment, they could be addressed now rather than somewhat the awkwardness that occurs when the appointee is standing at the podium.
Perfect.
And so this is just the opportunity for y'all to do that.
Great, because we have two on the queue, and this will prevent awkwardness. Dr. Johnson, followed by Mr. Freeman.
Mr. Chair, thank you for the prevention of said awkwardness. I did get a call from Mr. Martino. I just wanted to state, because of the substantial business interest that he has in this community, I think this is a great appointment. I will be supporting it. I've known Mr. Martino for some time. We've done lots of charity work together. So on a personal nature, I've gotten to know him as a friend and his belief in the work of this community. So I'm glad that we brought his appointment up. And while I do understand that this is something that is a part of the law, I do believe that a waiver should be granted for Josh because of his true belief and work in making Jacksonville better. Thank you.
All right, and by the way, I should have noted beforehand, welcome, Dr. Johnson. Over to Mr. Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And through the chair to OGC, I see Chapter 50 in here. So is this similar to the previous appointment that we just took up and voted on?
Through the chair to Councilmember Freeman, yes, that's correct. It's in the same section 50.102, and we actually did this on the previous appointment. As you recall, last cycle, the bill sponsor appeared and explained the substantial philanthropic business interest of the appointee. That is the process outlined in code, and it's the process we're following here.
Thank you. Mr. Martino is a great asset to our community and was really hoping that I could support him, and it looks like I will be able to. So thank you so much for explaining it.
All right, seeing no other speakers, I think we've satisfied the requirements of the code on 2025-0438. Let's move to the beginning of the agenda, and before we take up item number 1, we'll hear our 3 speakers who've all submitted comment cards. It'll first be Mr. Jesse Bradley and Ms. Christina Thomas, I guess, speaking together. Please both state your name and address, followed by Ms. Lindsay Ott, then Mr. John Nooney. And they can get 3 minutes each.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Howland, for allowing us to speak today. Jesse Spradley, 6747 South Point Parkway. I'm with the Northeast Florida Builders Association. Here to speak today about our support, about the conversation with workforce development with Bill 2025-8385. Really, though, I'm just here to introduce our Workforce Development Director, Christina Thomas. Christina leads our apprenticeship program, our 50-year-old apprenticeship program, and we are currently in the process working with them on building out a workforce development center. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to her to speak a little more on that.
Thank you, please. And ma'am, also please name and address.
Yes, Christina Thomas, also 6747 South Point Parkway. Thank you guys for listening to me today. As Jesse said, I've had the pleasure of leading our apprenticeship program, which has seen tremendous growth. Very happy to present that we just closed for applications, and it's been the largest one we've had in our history. We received over 330 applications. And a big part of that is due to our youth engagement that we've done. Currently, most of that engagement has had to take place off of our campus because we have not had one. But we hope with this new Workforce Development Center that we did purchase, and we're in the process of outfitting and getting constructed now, that we can garner some support so we can continue to partner with community organizations to support that mission. So, good. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. All right, next up we have Ms. Lindsay Ott, followed by Mr. John Nooney.
Good afternoon, committee members. Lindsay Ott, Build Up Downtown, Inc., 221 North Hogan Street. Just want to speak in support of 2025-385. Build Up Downtown is in support of the amendment work that was done this morning in neighborhoods. I want to encourage your consideration and support of 385 because of the residential momentum that we have going on in downtown Jacksonville right now. This legislation, this ensuing project would be a force multiplier for that work. And just to think about the residential density we already have in downtown's core, we've got the Cathedral District, we've got Gateway Jacks that's underway, we've got Brooklyn and the future La Villa graduate campus, and then this section on Bay Street would really be transformative for downtown's residential atmosphere. So thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you. And final speaker is Mr. John Nooney.
Hello, I am John Philanthropic Resiliency Nooney, Ocho Tres Cinco Seis, Bascom Road, Jacksonville, Florida, 32216. I'm in City Council District 4, CPAC, Planning District 3, School Board District 3. And Mr. Chair, thank you for 3 minutes. Man, I hope they send you to Waterways again. But right now, I'll be touching on agenda items 1, 2, agenda item 4, 2025-0188. That's JEA, River Accord stuff. That's BBB, Boylan's, Botanical Backyard, real estate number 158833-0000. Agenda item 5, 2025-0285. Vote no on that one. And, Carla, while you're here, we'll be touching on another one. Agenda item 11, 2025-0404. Vote no. That's the Environmental Protection Board. There's a meeting tonight, 5 o'clock. And you know what? Under public hearings on the agenda, go look for yourself right now. Public hearings, none. But yet, there's a legislation 2025-0432. That's watercraft regulations. Who's the Environmental Protection Board, council liaison to the Environmental Protection Board? I had asked Carla that. I have zero clue. And yet, we are about ready to give them the biggest power in this county. And so anyway, I'm just down to a minute 19. I want to be one of the biggest cheerleaders for this community. And let me just say, here, and you can just see for yourself, but look at the watercraft regulations. It's over a page. It goes to the next page. But look at agenda item 15 in your agenda. And then read the scope of it in its entirety. We're changing everything. And then tomorrow's Doge, resiliency. I'm in this thing 4 times. You want to save some money, you get rid of this thing. That's. But anyway, getting back, I'm down to 40 seconds. But here's FIND. This is the Florida Inland Navigation District. It's our ad valorem property tax money. There are 3 properties that were recognized by parks and waterways. And, this. I'm down to 20-some seconds. You also have the Northeast Florida Regional Council. But I'll tell you right now, we're making a movie, JSEB. JSEB's the greatest thing that's hit Jacksonville recently. And I'll tell you, we're making a movie. And if you have a shirt, you're in the movie. It's going to be wicked. And visit Jacksonville.
Thank you, Mr. Nooney, and I want to say I was really impressed. For about 2.5 of those 3 minutes, you stuck to agenda items. So thank you for that.
I'm practicing.
Yes, there you go. All right, if we start at the beginning, item number 1 is deferred at the request of Councilman Diamond. Item number 2 is deferred at the request of Councilman Carrico. Item 3 is deferred at the request of the administration, which brings us to item 4. And before we start on that, item 4, I just want to see... I know the last time that I spoke with JEA about this was back in the power lines discussion, and the administration hasn't approached me on it. I just wanted to take a poll real quick. Has anyone had a conversation with either the administration or JEA on this bill in particular? Mr. Carlucci, Mr. Gay? You have? Mr. Gay? Chris? I haven't. Terrence, did you? Mr. Boylan or Dr. Johnson?
Well, certainly as the introducer of the bill,
Yeah.
I was part of the conversation with Mr. Weinstein and JEA with respect to it and offering the opportunity as the liaison for JEA to introduce it.
Well, not begrudging JEA or the administration, but I think it's an important bill. It's the next in the 5-year renegotiation of the contribution from JEA to the city. And so I kind of feel like I think we need more time. Let me ask both the administration, the auditor, and JEA if it's okay to defer this or if we run into trouble in the budget. First, the auditor's opinion.
Through the chair to the committee, the part of the negotiation includes the additional $15 million contribution that the city budgeted for in the current year. So deferring it one cycle, I don't think is a problem as long as this bill gets passed out in the current year. Otherwise, we'd have a $15 million shortfall in the budget.
Okay. Yeah. Mr. Weinstein or Mr. Wilson, any problem with deferral?
Mike Weinstein, Mayor's Office. Two things. When we came around and spoke about the hiring of the wires, we also spoke about the contribution. If the contribution isn't voted out on the 24th, it's not going to be in our budget that we submit at the beginning of July. That $40 million, unless it's passed by council, we can't put it in the budget. So skipping a cycle is problematic.
Do you agree with that, Mr. Peterson? Sorry, I hate to put you at odds with the administration, but that's not what I heard earlier when we were just...
Through the chair to the committee, the administration submitted a budget to you in the current 24-25 year with $15 million additional, and there was not an agreement in place at that time addressing that $15 million. So I widely respect Mr. Weinstein. I don't see how the $40 million is any different.
Okay, and I guess on the power lines, I was kind of caught up in the power lines. If I'm being told, we also had the discussion on the contributions and the whole 5-year plan. I assume that that's right. I don't remember it, and there's been at least 100 really important bills that have happened between then and now. Yeah, so I don't feel that I'm ready to vote. Mr. Wilson, are you okay if this is deferred from the JEA perspective? Yes, you are, okay.
It's not going to be in the budget. $40 million is not going to be in the budget.
Well, we'll just have to pretend it is.
Yeah,
go ahead, Mr. Carlucci.
I think it's imperative for us to get a little more clarity on that before we decide. I'm like you. I don't have a problem with deferring and actually mention that to you, but with such a diversity of opinion between the administration and Mr. Weinstein, whose experience goes back so far, and with Phil Peterson, whose experience on the council goes back. I just think we need some clarity on that, because when Mr. Weinstein walks away and says $40 million won't be in the budget, that gives me a little pause. And is there a way, Mr. Chair, that you think we could get some clarity and maybe come back to it? But I'm hesitant now, to just defer it over.
Yeah, we can instruct. Can we instruct them? Well, we can just kind of assume that $40 million is going to be in there pending approval of the agreement. I don't see why the mayor's office can't put it in there subject to approval.
We have no authority to. We have no authority to put it in unless you pass it.
Then you need to come to us individually, all of us, and have discussions. This is an important thing. Let's go around the queue. We got Mr. Freeman, Mr. Boylan, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And
I'm not voting on something.
I enjoyed watching Neighborhoods this morning, and one of the comments that one of the members made in Neighborhoods was the value of the auditors, and reminded us of the horrid JEA scenario. And so I have made it one of my initiatives one of my primary things that I lean in and listen to the auditors. And I've heard the auditor just tell us that we will be able to do it, one. The second thing I heard him say is that there's already a precedent been set of this being done before with $15 million. So I'm slightly confused on how $15 million is going to be in it, but yet they're saying 40 is not. Is there any way that you can give me clarity on the difference between those two items?
Through the chair to Councilmember Freeman. In my mind, I don't see the $40 million different than the $15 million. The $15 million that's included in fiscal year 24-25 was an additional one-time contribution from JEA. That was not in an executed agreement, It was known that they had agreed to it, but it had not been put into language. The 40 million is basically the same thing. We have words in front of us that say the additional 40 million. Now, I do understand from Mr. Weinstein's standpoint, we can't force them to include the 40 million. We couldn't force them to include the 15 million. But if you were to pass this out at a time after the budget, then you would also know that you have an additional $40 million that would roll in the 25-26 year.
Thank you. And through the chair to the auditors, what I think I heard you say is that it ultimately falls on to the administration when they're doing the budget, if they choose to put the 40 in or not. So he's not incorrect by saying that 40 million won't be in it. But what I'm hearing that he's not saying is if it's not in it, it's because they chose not to put it in. Through the chair to the auditors, am I correct in my thinking?
Through the chair to Councilmember Freeman, that's correct. I think I'm not the chief of staff or CAO for the administration, but I think you do have. I think they have you have a document in front of you that says JEA has agreed to the 40 million, so they could include that in their budget, whether or not you have approved this today.
Thank you. And so to the chair, I submit to you that it's semantics, and I agree with you. If we all haven't had meetings on something as heavy as this, that giving us more time to understanding is the best thing to do. Two, I do not believe that 40 million will not be in the budget because the auditors have just given us the confidence, and we all fully trust our auditors that if it's not in it, it was because budgets are a reflection of your priorities. So it would mean then that it wasn't a priority of the administration to put this 40 million in. So I'm comfortable with you as chair, and well within your right to defer it if you choose to. I'm comfortable with you doing so.
Thank you. Mr. Boylan, Dr. Johnson, Mr. Carlucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And one of the challenges of sunshine, for those of us who do operate in the sunshine, I was not, didn't realize there was a concern with respect to this item, given how freely people were looking to spend this money long before you even had it in the budget, or even as a bill. I guess my question is to Mr. Wilson or Ted, if you prefer. There's a board meeting next Tuesday. Ramifications of deferring this on the part of JEA, does it change their financial forecasting by any stretch of the imagination?
Through the chair, Kurt Wilson, JEA, to Councilman Boylan, no, sir. Our board's already approved the resolution authorizing the agreement. It's before you now. It won't impact us.
On the other side of that coin, we've got two more committees this needs to go through, and it's not uncommon practice for those who've been in the neighborhoods for the last couple of years, chaired it last year. There are many times we pass through the bill to give you, the JEA, and the administration an opportunity to meet with those council members who are concerned about this. Is there an appetite and or opportunity for you or Mr. Weinstein or both to meet with some of my colleagues who are expressing concerns on this bill between now and tomorrow's two meetings?
Yes, sir. Through the chair. So when Mike mentioned we discussed this through power lines, both bills got filed at the same time, which is why we joined the bills in the discussion. It's just the contribution got delayed because of amendment to the charter. So there was a delay, if you will, before coming to committee. I'll take ownership of this one. To the chair's point, I think it's important enough that it should have been refreshed. So I should have reached out sooner and refresh the committee. If the chairs of the other committees feel the same, they want to defer it, I'm happy to meet with all 19 people again. If they want to take the bill up tomorrow, we're happy to do that as well. We'll work at the pleasure of the council.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, my consideration, and I'd like to see this thing move forward expeditiously if we can to provide the comfort to everybody. I don't see any reason why we as a committee could not either defer it and have it disposed next week, discharged next week, I'm sorry, as a possibility. But at the same time, I don't, those are our two options. And perhaps the other committees would be comfortable in moving it forward if they have a chance to meet with some of the members.
Yeah, thank you. And Mr. Wilson and Mike, please don't misunderstand me. That I don't assign blame to anyone for not getting to us. We've had a lot of major things to consider over the past month and a half, 2 months. And so I could have been fully briefed on this. But when we had the pre-agenda meeting, I started asking all sorts of questions, realizing that I'm not even sure my colleagues would be prepared. Like, here we're talking about a 1% increase each year. At one point, the Curry administration negotiated 2.5 million increases per year. There's all sorts of different ways that we could look at this, and we're being asked to make a decision. I think it merits probably another pre-brief to all members of the committees and all council members who will be voting on this at the next full meeting, just because it's an important issue. We'll go to Dr. Johnson, Mr. Carlucci, then Mr. Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm sure that once we get a chance to get a little deeper into this, that the president obviously could discharge it. We could still vote it out on council night. But I guess my question then becomes, and maybe this is for you, Mr. Weinstein, or someone else can explain to me, why is it that it has to be voted on by the council in order to be included in the budget? From my understanding, the way the budget works, and I hate to use this term, I'm sure I'm going to probably get beat up for this, but it's aspirational. Because at the end of the day, the council has to approve the budget in totality. So everything we put in the budget, there's nothing that is completely infallible in that budget. It comes to us to kind of pick it apart, add stuff to it, that kind of thing. Why is there a belief that we need to pass this in order for this aspirational piece of the budget to be included?
Who are you asking?
I'm asking whoever can give me an answer.
All right, if you want to answer that question, Mr. Carlucci, you can, and then Mr. Weinstein, I'm sure will.
As I was thinking this through, I'm starting to change my mind just a bit. And if I'm wrong, Mr. Peterson can tell me, but this would be from the administration's point of view. They want to bring together a full budget, and that $40 million is probably going to go a long ways towards a budget that we anticipate is going to be tight. If we don't pass this by the next council meeting, then that bill, that $40 million has not been passed by council. It's going to be difficult for them to include it in the budget, which is delivered on July 1st before the next council meeting has. I think that may be part of the problem, and I'd like to ask Mr. Peterson or Mr. Weinstein particularly if that's part of the problem there.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying I'm sorry.
With all due respect, that wasn't my question, council member. Through the chair, that wasn't the question I was asking. Because I want to understand, again, as I stated earlier, this is aspirational. The budget in totality is not infallible. There are changes that will be made. We can all agree on this dais that there will be changes to the budget once it's made. My question then becomes, why does it seem, if we're since the budget itself, now I firmly believe that we're going to be briefed, I'm sure after this meeting, that we're going to be briefed. My belief is that it will probably be discharged and we'll end up voting on this on the dais on council night. Probably what's going to happen. May or may not. Just putting on my great, amazing Kreskin glasses and hat. Mm-hmm. Old people will understand that reference. But I will tell you, I just don't know. And so maybe you could answer it through the chair, Representative Weinstein, as to why it must be passed in order to be included.
If I may, and first, beginning of July, we're going to print a balanced budget. And we need authority to put in the 40, because if we put in the 40 and you don't pass it in July when you have your next meeting, then the budget's totally out of balance by the 40 million. I mean, we don't want to assume, even though some of you have tried to spend the 40 million already, we need authority to put it in for fear of it not being put in later on. And then we've submitted a balanced budget using $40 million that you won't ultimately give us authorization to use. So that's normally the 15 I can't speak about. Last year I didn't participate. The year before I did, but not last year. But again, we really seek authorization for every revenue stream we put in the budget. That's all.
You, Dr. Johnson.
Almost finished. And that is just because it's the right thing to do, because we have to submit a balanced budget, but nowhere does it say that we have to specifically show, and I'm just asking because I want for clarity through the chair, does it say specifically you must show the revenue stream for which you're putting these dollars into the budget?
We need authorization to put the money in. The problem is because of the charter amendment that Kurt Wilson discussed. It was many months ago when we sat and talked about the wires. And it was many months ago that we mentioned the charter amendment and this particular contribution. So I do understand the gap in between. We wish we weren't this late. The only reason we're this late is because of the charter amendment. But we are up against, and we're literally putting the budget together to be printed early in July.
Mr. Chair. Are you okay? Mr. Freeman was next on the queue, and then we'll go back if you don't mind saving that thought.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to Councilman Johnson, there's a wise saying, it's not the question you ask, it's the answer I give. All right, and it was one of the things I was taught. But this is just laid on my heart to say, and then I'll be done. I regret that I didn't start the meeting by offering our prayers and thoughts to those electeds that were tragically murdered in Minnesota. We all sit up here doing what we feel is the best for our constituents, and that was just an awful thing. But that also leads me to the next, is that I hope that is a call to us as leaders to tone down our accusations, to tone down our rhetoric, and to become more civil in our discourse with each other when it comes to agreeing to agree or disagree. And I'm going to start saying this more and more, and I may start coming behind people and speaking up and saying it, because there are those that watch this that are dealing with mental health challenges that they take to heart what we say, more so than the activists. That, and I'm grateful that the activists come in and that they're passionate, but it's not those folks that I'm worried about. It's the ones out there. It's the one that threatened my life a year ago. It's real, and it does happen. So I really ask that we tone it down, and I'm going to talk to our president as well. I do want to speak to the misinformation that's out again. When they say that we're taking the dollars, the $10 million that I filed on a bill, let me be clear. That was because, and I appreciate Mr. Weinstein saying that he wasn't a part of last year's budget. It makes sense to me now, Mr. Weinstein, so thank you for sharing that. That was because $10 million was supposed to be funded in this current budget, and it wasn't for UF Health Trauma Center. The $10 million that we attached from JEA is a backfill because there was a commitment to replace those $10 million in next year's budget. So if by chance they did not, and I think there's $14 million that's coming as well for, that Councilman Salem did in this year. So if by chance they did not put those dollars in, this JEA money would backfill for that. That was my understanding of the bill that I filed. And if I'm mistaken, then my apologies, but that is the goal. And so I want to make sure that when we're out there and we're saying that we saw free money and we took it, yes, we're all talking about saving it. But in the case of the $10 million, be clear when you talk about that $10 million, it was for the largest employer of African Americans in our city, the top location, the only location for indigent care in our city, one of the best and largest teaching institutions in our city, and one of 7 Trauma One centers. So I do not think we need to fold that $10 million conversation into whatever points we're trying to make about dollars. Thank you.
Okay, over to Mr. Carlucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm evolving around a little bit on how my thinking. I obviously agree with you and the others who may not have been briefed on this like they should have, and what we're used to. That's an issue. I also, though, think that from a process point of view, perhaps we have an option. We can vote it through, and then and then the administration can and the JEA can put a press on us to get to us and explain why it's needed and the details about it. And if we're satisfied, we're good. We could do that. We could defer the bill, and it could be pulled out of committee, and that would give the administration a chance to come and talk to us and satisfy our questions. But I think, looking back now, it's imperative for the mayor to be able to include that $40 million. I know if I was mayor or you were mayor, you'd want to include that money in the budget. But oops, we didn't quite get to everybody we should have. Well, we still have some time. So either defer it or pass it, keeping their fingers crossed that their explanation satisfies. But I would not favor not having an option where they can get that money in before they deliver the budget message. They're going to want that money in there, and I'd want it in there too, but with more explanation. So that's my suggestion as somebody who's been around probably for a while.
I think seeing no other speakers in the queue, my inclination is to defer and try to have a meeting with the administration and JEA as soon as we can, giving the president the option to discharge if we're the only committee that defers. Maybe TEU committee and finance committee feel differently. Maybe they feel they're ready to vote on it. Unless there's any dissent to that. Okay, let's defer, and then if the council president is listening, if all of us who have expressed concern about not being briefed, or we were briefed, and apologies, it's all disappeared from my memory because we've had other things in the interim, and we do feel briefed, he can discharge it and we can vote on it on Tuesday night. All right, thank you all. Appreciate the discussion on that. We move next to item number 5, 2025-0285. We have an amendment on the bill. We have a motion and a second on the amendment. Mr. Peterson, please explain.
Yes, sir. Through the chair to the committee, the Neighborhoods Amendment expands the employees that would be included in this from not only being the mayor and city council members, but also to being directors of departments or officers or managers of offices that act like departments. So the Office of Sports and Entertainment, the Office of Economic Development, the Office of Administrative Services, and then also including managers and supervisory positions within the office of the mayor. Updating a listing of a reference to Section 126-108, the subsections that would also be included, striking a reference to code sections that are no longer in our ordinance code, clarifying that the affidavit that will be filled out by the organization will be attached as an exhibit to any bill that is filed in the future, and identifying the process that will be followed if a relationship is identified, whereby if the affidavit identifies that a spouse or children of a council member or the mayor, or in this case, the additional positions, is identified, then the procurement division would be notified of those services to be provided. They would put out a 2-week notice, and then they would notify whoever wanted to file the legislation of the number of responses they received from entities that could also provide that same service. It would then be up to the bill sponsor, if you will, to determine whether or not they want to go through a procurement process or to just continue with the legislation with the entity that they previously identified. And then there's various scriveners.
Appreciate it, Mr. Peterson. We have 2 members on the queue, Dr. Johnson, followed by Mr. Freeman. And let me confirm, both are on the amendment. Roger that. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will tell you, I had a little heartache about this when I was watching Neighborhoods. And one of the things that I have an issue with is it has nothing to do with ethics, because I believe that, as I have said from the beginning, since 1968, this council has had a check system, which is called the Jacksonville City Council. So I am so confident in my colleagues and our belief to look into all of the things that we're doing, but to add in this number of people, like the chiefs and directors of departments as a part of this, seems to be, at best, burdensome. That is a piece that I do not think that belongs here. I am going to move to do it, but I wanted to ask, maybe this is, I guess, to the auditors. I'm not sure whether to the auditors or OGC, through the chair. I did watch most of the meeting, especially during this part. Removing that part of that, what would that do to the belief, or to what's trying to be done, to the spirit of what's trying to be done? If we remove that part about, because I want to say it's about 50 or so people that would be included, and it seemed to be that it would be additional burden on the city for, I don't even know what reason, because we're going to be looking at all of those things anyway. Help me understand there so that I don't have heartburn on this.
Through the chair to Councilmember Johnson. So there are approximately, don't hold me to this number, but 20-something employees within the mayor's office. Not all of them are going to have supervisory or managerial responsibilities. So let's just say that's 15 within the mayor's office, and then throughout all of the directors or department heads, I believe there's 10 to 13 different departments. So you're probably looking at 25 to 30 employees that this would apply to. The 50 number you're referencing is that Councilmember Salem said he was going to offer an amendment tomorrow to have it also apply to all division chiefs, which then gets up to that 50. But regardless, this would add an additional 25, 30 employees that would be required for this to apply to. So when a council member or the mayor or any of these employees wanted, I guess these employees can't file a piece of legislation, but the council member wanted to file a piece of legislation, the entity that they wanted to direct contract with would have to fill out that affidavit. And so it's going to be on that entity to know who all of the applying relatives, spouse and children, of every person that this applies to know if there's a conflict. And from that standpoint, that then determines the process of whether or not you go on to procurement or you proceed with a piece of legislation.
Let me ask you, through the chair, if that individual, if it's organization Y, I was going to say X, but that may just spark too much stuff. If it's organization Y over here, and I don't know of all of the connections that organization Y has, and I apply for it, does that then put them in possible violation if my child's is somehow involved with the organization, right? And the person doesn't know it, depending on the specifics of the organization. That's why to me, it was just so nebulous when you're saying we want to make sure everybody's included in all the spaces. That's when you get to the point of it's so restrictive that you end up stopping the organization from doing the thing that you want them to do. And I believe this small piece of this legislation does that.
Through the chair to Councilmember Johnson, the way I read the legislation, and Ms. Miller and Mr. Enderhees are here, but I believe the affidavit will be filled out by the organization, not the council member. So if council member Z wanted to appropriate dollars to organization Y is who will be responsible for filling out that affidavit. Now, it would be incumbent upon organization Y to know all of the connections, spouse and children, of all of the council members and anybody else that this would apply to when filling that out. And if it was later determined that they filled it out in error, I don't believe this bill addresses that scenario.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chair, I move that we strike that particular provision from this piece of legislation.
And you're proposing an amendment to the amendment?
Yes, sir. So I amend to remove that specific portion because I just don't think it's flushed out enough at this point. I mean, I get a second, that's fine, but I want to make sure. I just want to make sure because I see this, and that was my issue when I saw that particular discussion. I see this as bringing undue burden, and it may look like the organization. And I notice you keep we're all avoiding certain alphabets, but I noticed that this organization here may be in violation of something. And they may or may not know. Depends on how big or small the organization is, right? If it's a small organization, nonprofit D, or if it's big, like with bunches of members, and the people don't know. I just think right now, I think you would need to be more specific, and I'm not there. So that's my motion.
So we have 3 members on the queue. Right now we have a motion on the table for the amendment to the amendment from Dr. Johnson. And Ms. LaPera, do you think it's not properly postured to be an amendment to the amendment? You think it's a separate amendment?
To the chair, the original amendment was not moved or seconded. So.
Oh, it was. It was. Yeah.
None of it. Okay.
It was moved and seconded. Yeah, and then I asked Mr. Peterson to explain. Yeah. So this is an amendment to the amendment. Are you on the Johnson amendment to the amendment? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through the chair to Councilman Johnson. The points you brought up were brought up this morning in neighborhoods as well, I thought. And so Councilmember Amaro did it. I loved how he just communicates and articulates his thoughts. And so I don't want to step on his cape and the work that he did and bringing some light to it. But through the chair to the auditors, or to whoever, the OGC or auditors, when we talked about the Neighborhoods Amendment, one, you can't vote against transparency. I mean, you can't. It is something that we all believe in. We all preach it. But it's also a slippery slope. And I heard them say this morning, like how wide do you want to cast a net is basically how I understood it. I didn't hear you say appointments or appointees of the mayor in this amendment, but I thought I heard them say that this morning. No, I understood Salem was saying chiefs. Right?
Through the chair to Councilmember Freeman, Councilmember Salem referred to appointments of the mayor, appointees of the mayor, referring to directors, chiefs, and then positions within the mayor's office, but not appointments in the case of like someone showing up to a board or commission.
All right, so there is the delineation between those types of appointments and then those that are appointed by the mayor to work in any capacity, or do they have to manage people? Through the chair to the auditors.
Through the chair to Councilmember Freeman. As it relates to the NCS PHS amendment, we're looking at directors and those in charge of departments. and then the managerial and supervisory roles within the mayor's office only. That's the neighborhoods amendment.
Manager. What I'm basically saying is, like I just saw, well, I probably didn't see it, but the mayor has several members of the staff that they manage themselves. Would they be excluded?
They would be excluded, and there's nothing that prevents the mayor from reorganizing the office to where no one reports to anyone.
Right. And so that's where I see more of a challenge of, one, we are elected, and so we are held to a higher standard. And so I do, and that's why I say this is a slippery slope, and I see where this is going to go tomorrow. And again, how can you vote against transparency? So that's the one thing that I just keep reminding myself of. Councilmember Miller brought up a great point about general counsel being able to hire a father-in-law. And so I fully anticipate those coming. Councilman Johnson, if you would have gotten in neighborhoods, if you were in neighborhoods and you'd have brought it, you would have had my support per se, but I don't want to step on the toes. I don't think 25 to 30 people is asking too much. I don't know how much that grows after tomorrow, one, and then two, it sounds to me that the burden is going to be placed on the organizations. So I think it's more of hearing from organizations of the undue stress put on it. But that I'm going to support the bill. It did bother me that a colleague of ours felt like he's being attacked, and I'm just not a big fan of the weaponizing of any types of tools of government. I know Ms. Miller well, and I don't think that would ever be her intention. And so I'm not saying that is the spirit of her work, but my gut tells me we're about to go down this slope, and we're all going to be pushing the button yes, and it's going to capture a lot of people that are working within city government. And then my last question, I'm so sorry, but I have to ask this question through the chair to the auditors. If this bill were to pass and a council member were to ask not for it to be retroactive, but how many people in the past who are currently holding those roles, how many contracts have they received, or monies have they received, would there be a way of capturing that? Because obviously this is filed to try to prevent something from happening. I would be curious if it's happened before.
Through the chair to Councilmember Freeman, I'm not aware of a way to look retroactively without receiving a similar affidavit from anyone who has received a grant from the city.
And that's fair. And then this would just be for contracts with the city. So it would exclude school board. It would exclude any other outside entities. Okay, thank you.
We have two members in staff on the queue, Mr. Carlucci and Dr. Johnson. Is this on Dr. Johnson's amendment to the amendment, Mr. Carlucci?
Yes, it is. This bill is an administrative. It's referring to an administrative function that's been introduced, and it's been introduced by the mayor. I would like to know, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Chair, through the chair, if we could have Carla Miller or Joe Interhees come up and give us their opinion on the Johnson amendment. Knowing Councilmember Johnson, I know it's well intended, but I just would like to get their take on that, please.
Please invite who you'd like up.
I'd like to bring both of them up there just in case, but I'm a little partial to Carla. Sorry, Joe.
Ms. Miller, before you state your name and address, I just want to say for the record, we've been joined by Council President-elect Kevin Carrico, and Councilman Carrico joins us as the Council Vice President ex officio voting member as assigned by the current Council President. Thanks. So over to you, Ms. Miller.
Good afternoon. Carla Miller from the Mayor's Office. To address the particular amendment introduced by Councilmember Johnson, it's always an interesting policy question on where do you draw the line? How many people do you want to include in this? And the reason it was drafted this way, just with elected officials, is because that's really easy for a nonprofit that has to fill out an affidavit. They can just look in many sources and find out who their elected officials are. They know who the council is. They know who the mayor is. Once you start getting into other areas, since those positions sometimes change, people come and go, especially at the lower levels, administratively it gets harder for the nonprofit. So the consideration was for the entities that would be filling out those affidavits to keep it narrow. After neighborhoods, I talked with employee services to kind of get the categories of employees to help, because there's so many different categories. And one of the ones that I thought was illustrative, just for your information, is appointed officials who are directors. And these are people that come in front of you for their appointments to be confirmed, and they're also directors. I have a spreadsheet of how many people fall under that category, and it's 19 people, which matches the 19 people in City Council. But that group doesn't change very often, and it's a group that could be put on a sheet that if someone wanted to apply for something, you could just give them that sheet and say, here are people that apply. And you could add other categories. I'm just saying that the reason it is narrow to elected officials is just to not put such a burden on the nonprofits that are trying to get funding. But it's totally a policy decision on where you want to draw that line.
Okay.
Okay, you still have the floor. Yeah.
So what do you think of the Councilman Johnson amendment? I mean, can y'all live with it or live without it, or what's?
Well, I think his, through the chair to...
Through the chair, I'm sorry.
To my friend, Councilmember Carlucci. The amendment, as I understand it, just eliminates that provision, so we don't have to draw those lines. It goes back to the original bill, which is basically elected officials, the 19 elected officials, the mayor, not ECAs, not division chiefs, not all.
And that's what you support?
That was the original bill.
Okay. All right. Thank you. You've answered my question, Ms. Miller.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, over to Dr. Johnson on your own amendment.
Very quickly, Mr. Chair, I wanted to say one of the things I think that was important but we brought out, we were talking about people and how many people. This is less about people for me and more about organizations. As Ms. Miller just said, this is about the burden of the organization and trying to figure out who, and especially if it's depending on the organization, if it's a larger organization, it depends. Like if we're looking at somewhere, and I'll just use this, UF Health, there's so many people working there. Does that mean it filters down to all of those spaces and places? I just don't want to end up putting an organization in an undue position and then you turned around and then say, hey, you guys were unethical, when in fact, they just didn't know. Let's make sure if we're going to put this provision in there that we flush it out, and right now it's just not ready for prime time. Thank you.
Okay, no other speakers. Let's take a vote on the Johnson amendment to the amendment, which was moved by Dr. Johnson and seconded for discussion by Mr. Freeman. We'll take this vote verbally. All in favor of the Johnson amendment to the amendment indicate by saying aye. Aye. All against say no. No. Let's redo this vote by hand, if you don't mind. Can I just redo it? All right. All in favor of the Johnson amendment to the amendment indicate by raising your hand. All against indicate by raising your hand. The Johnson amendment to the amendment fails, which puts us back to the Neighborhoods Amendment. And there were several members in the queue before the Johnson amendment, if anyone wants to get in the queue and talk about the Neighborhoods Amendment. Seeing none, we will take this vote verbally. All in favor of the Neighborhoods Amendment indicate by saying aye. Aye. All against say no. The Neighborhoods Amendment passes. We have a motion and a second on the bill as amended. All right, seeing no speakers in the queue, I just want to point one thing out myself, and that is I'm going to vote in favor of this amendment. But I note that it says here, request of the mayor. The only time you see that on legislation is generally when it's a budget transfer approval, a grant approval, a mayoral appointment. You rarely see it when it's a policy that's being passed by legislation. This is policy. So when it came during the legislative assignment meetings to me, I rejected it and sent it back to the mayor and said, find the administration, said find a sponsor. So technically this is being introduced at the request of the council president. Now, all of the budget transfers, grant approvals, mayoral appointments are technically introduced by the council president, but not often is generally the council president's opinion to put it on the agenda or not isn't sought. When it's policy, I think going forward, anytime the mayor wants to introduce policy, they shouldn't just assume that the council president is going to introduce it. They should find one of the 19 to introduce it for sure, whether it's the council president or not, because the mayor is not elected to implement policy. This council is, and 19 of us are. The mayor's elected to implement policy. So just like the president can't put something on the agenda, the president's got to find a congressperson or a senator, and the governor can't put something on the agenda, they got to find a member of the House or a member of the state. That should be the same. In this case, this came back to the agenda with the council president as the introducer, and that's why we're hearing it today. Mr. Carlucci.
Well, I agree with a lot of what you said, but I have to say this. If the mayor is introducing a bill that is an administrative function, I've seen these type of things many times before. We still get to vote on it, and it's generally introduced by the council president at the request of the mayor. But the mayor, has full right to administer policy within her own administration, and I don't see anything where this is out of line. I'm just throwing that out there that's just what I think. I respect what you say, of course, but I'm just saying that's what I think.
Yep, and this, of course, involves the mayor or council members, so which is why it's not an internal administrative policy. It's a policy for the city, but I understand what you're saying as well. With that, seeing no other speakers in the queue, let's open the ballot and record your vote.
Eight yeas, 0 nays.
And by your vote, 2025-0285 passes as amended, which brings us to, we've taken up item 6. We've taken up item 7. That brings us to item 8, and then we'll get to item 9 here in a minute. So item 8 has an amendment. We have a motion and a second on the amendment. Mr. Peterson.
Through the chair of the committee, the amendment would clarify that this new deadline extension applies only to grantees whose annual audit is required to be performed by the state auditor general, or for entities who are required to submit their audit to the state auditor general pursuant to section 21839 of the Florida statutes, and then corrects a spelling error.
Okay, this is item 2025-0383. Mr. Peterson just explained the amendment. We have Mr. Boylan on the, nope, not on the amendment. All right. Seeing no one in the queue on the amendment, we'll take this vote verbally. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All against say no. The amendment passes. We have a motion and a second on the bill as amended. Now, Mr. Boylan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair, Mr. Peterson, I thought you did an excellent job this morning in helping us understand the impetus for this bill, and I want to thank Councilman Johnson for putting it forward. I thought it might be warranted for you to go ahead and share the rationale for it again this afternoon.
Through the chair to the committee. So each year, Duval County School Board is the one who stands out the most. They usually receive some form of city grant from the city, and if that grant award is in excess of $100,000, they're required to provide us an annual audit within 120 days of the close of their fiscal year, which that falls on October 28th, that 120-day time limit. But they do not receive their annual audit from the Auditor General until the springtime. And so this bill gives them an extension until March 31st of the following year to provide that audit, whereby currently they are placed on the non-compliance list after October 28th when we don't receive their audit. This would keep them off the non-compliance list up until that March 31st timeframe, which has fallen, as long as I can remember, within the timeframe in which we've received that audit. So this, off the top of my head, would apply to Duval County School Board, UNF, FSCJ. It's basically public institutions that fall under the audit authority of the Auditor General.
All right. Good. Seeing no other speakers on the queue, we have a motion on the and a second on the bill as amended. Let's open the ballot and record your vote.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
By your vote, 2025-0383 passes. We move next to item number 9 on page 7. That's the 2025-0385. We have a neighborhoods amendment. We have a motion and a second on the neighborhoods amendment. Mr. Peterson.
Yes, sir. Through the chair to the committee, the neighborhoods amendment modifies the $45 million appropriation to go into 3 separate buckets. First is $30 million towards the downtown riverfront residential incentives contingency, $5 million to a countywide affordable housing contingency, and then $10 million to a council contingency set aside for activities including but not limited to workforce development, improvements at FSCJ, the JU Youth Sports Project, and the Downtown Preservation and Revitalization Program that is overseen by DIA. We'll attach a revised Exhibit 1, which is the BT, to reflect that change in appropriation, a revised exhibit for the downtown map that was distributed this morning that extends the map that was attached to the legislation east to include the Berkman properties, and then also authorized carryover of funds to fiscal year 25-26.
Okay, Council President-elect Carrico, would you like to speak on the amendment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, for recognizing me. I meant to try to get to neighborhoods today, but I had an appointment I had to keep, and you'll be happy to know that my dermatologist was listening intent as well as I was, and she thought it was really riveting conversation we were having this morning. But I do want to commend the neighborhoods group for really working through it and finding some soft landing points that seem to be important to everyone. Just want to remind everybody,
the spawn of this legislation came out of Joe Carlucci's work on the Special Committee for the Future of Downtown. We all agreed that there were some necessary forthcoming projects that were really going to spark and kind of bring together, the two pillars of the outside of downtown with your UF campus and the stadium. That Bay Street corridor is really something that, really just in my mind has to hit hard for this downtown puzzle to be complete. So that's where it started. So he found the money. Great job. Found the 45, called a notice meeting, and the first thing I said in the notice meeting was, I don't think you're going to be able to swallow or stomach this whole council just putting that whole 45 there. Let's talk it out. Let's think of some things that are important to other members, that are important to the larger vision of the city as a whole. So that's when we started getting into the discussion on workforce development and some of the work being done by some of the universities. You've heard from NEFBA and what they're looking at doing in their workforce initiatives, and then affordable housing came up this morning. I think with Mr. Peluso first, and then with Ken Amaro, kind of splitting the baby on that. And I'm comfortable to where we landed. I also co-sponsored this legislation, so it's in a decent spot. But I'm here to answer some questions. I had extensive conversations with Tim Cost over the weekend, and there was some questions in neighborhoods on what the JU portion was for. So I'm here to answer that, and here to just kind of stand in support. I do support the amendment, but also I'm looking forward to the discussion here and also in finance to see if there are some other priorities and other things that this body as a whole would like to discuss in regards to these dollars. So I just wanted to offer that as a narrative to kick off the conversation, and I'm here to listen and I'm here for questions.
All right, thank you, sir. And this is a pretty beefy amendment, so I imagine the three on the queue want to speak on it. We have Dr. Johnson, Mr. Freeman, 4 in the queue, Mr. Boylan, followed by Mr. Carlucci. So Dr. Johnson first, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you as well to the Council President-elect for sharing his medical information with us today. I attended the notice meeting as well with the Council President-elect, and that was, again, one of the things. I noticed that it wasn't included in here, but this is more of a question. The $10 million that is included in the special council contingency that's set aside for activities, it says including but not limited to countywide and et al. It gives that information there. I just want to make sure that while I do know it says it here, I just want it on the record through the chair to the auditors. One of the things I brought up that I did not see included anywhere, but it is in those noticed meeting minutes, it spoke about the Sports and Entertainment Trust Fund. One of the beliefs I had this discussion on the phone with the chamber this morning as we discussed this piece of legislation. In order for us to have special events downtown, which brings people downtown and thus resources downtown, it comes out of that Sports and Entertainment Trust Fund. If we wanted to put some of these funds there, since it says it speaks to those but not limited to, which I brought it to, one of the things I understand, I want to say that fund is now somewhere south of 750, I think is where it is. I'm not going to hold you to that number. I just want to make sure that if we need to put funds from this contingency into that so that we can continue having these kind of events that bring life to downtown Jacksonville, which thus spurs the city, it's something that's available out of these funds.
Through the chair to Councilmember Johnson, I think you're hitting on a point that Councilmember Boylan brought up in NCS this morning of that including but not limited to language. So while not specifically listed, because we have that additional language, yes, I think that at a later time, funds could be appropriated out of this $10 million pot to that instance or anything else, honestly. We would hope that the funds be spent on one-time expenses because it's a one-time revenue source and not an operating expense, but absolutely, I think that could be done.
The beauty of this, I believe, Mr. Chair, as well, is when you put it into a fund like that, that it's kind of like it allows it to replenish, right? This fund is the benefits or revenue from that fund brings back in, and we can use it for other things. So I'm looking at it almost like an endowment, so to speak. So those funds come back. Let me ask you another thing. I don't see it specified in here. I think we put it on the record in the meeting through the auditors. But the funds that are in this account, when we move that, whatever these amounts are, into that account, they will be in a fund that gives benefit from that, some kind of dividend from that, correct?
Through the chair to Councilmember Johnson, yes, that's the intent too, that these funds will be sitting in a special account that will earn interest. And so while we'll just use the $30 million as an example, while it's sitting there and not being spent, it will continue to grow as time goes on because of the interest that is earned from those funds being available.
And as I said on the record then, the vibrant downtown means a vibrant city. I will be supporting this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We go next to Mr. Freeman, followed by Mr. Boylan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I wanted to focus on the incentives for the affordable housing and the workforce. And I think in neighborhoods, someone came up and spoke. But through the chair, through to whoever can talk about the $5 million in a countywide affordable housing contingency, how will those dollars be, how will we define or determine which groups get to use it? I believe I heard community foundation or something along those lines.
Through the chair to Councilmember Freeman. So the Community Foundation, you might recall, working with the mayor, presented a plan last year for $10 million of affordable housing from the city, that they would raise approximately $30,000 of outside funds, and that would go out into the community. This $5 million will be set into a contingency account, and so someone will have to come back with a plan on how to use these dollars. And because they're going into a contingency, it will require a 2/3 vote of the council to pull it out of that contingency. So right now, I don't know that there's a specific plan on how to use this $5 million.
Understood. And this is, when I see affordable housing, are we talking multifamily, or are we talking homes, or all that fall underneath it? And so an organization like a Vescor could come in and make a pitch for this, or for these dollars?
Through the chair to Councilmember Freeman, yes, sir. I think given the generic nature of the language, I think all of the above would be available.
Okay, and that's what I wanted to understand. And then you mentioned the Community Foundation and $10 million. I heard this morning that I believe there's a match, or there's going to be, if we put 5 in, they're going to go out and get 10 or something like that, and it comes to 15.
Through the chair to Councilmember Freeman, so last year's was the city put in 10 and they would raise 30. It was stated this morning that if the city put in 5, they would raise 15. So I just look at it as a 3-to-1 match. But I believe it's Mr. Scroggins. It could probably speak better to that on how that match works.
Got it. Mr. Scroggins, if you don't mind coming down again and kind of sharing with this committee, because one of the questions that I want to ask, or maybe you can help me with this, is going to be involving the land trust. About 2 years ago, we took a lot of our properties and put it into a land trust. So I'm going to land there, but if you could give your name and address and then kind of confirm or deny that you all are going to raise $3-to-1.
Thank you, Councilmember. James Coggin, the Community Foundation for Northeast Florida. So close, so close. 269 Riverside Avenue. Yes, the fund structure that we are working on with our partners, the Jesse Ball DuPont Fund, does include a 3-to-1 leverage on a public investment that could help us structure this fund. Not to say that has been decided by any means as the use for this, but this fund is targeted towards multifamily housing development that is affordable.
All right, thank you. And so you all would deal with that outside, and it would come back to us. And I will just say that, I haven't always had the best, I don't want to say relationship, but I too had tried to work with the DuPont Foundation at one point, and it went nowhere. It didn't go anywhere at the end. So I'm not going to sit here from a position and say I got full trust that when you all come back with something, it's going to be something that I believe can happen. And that's just based off of a past experience. But that said, the land trust, are you all engaged and involved in that land trust conversation, or the 4,000 properties?
Our foundation has in the past supported the community land trust, but I do not believe we have an open grant currently.
Got it. Do you all have any plans on dealing with any of those properties? I believe there's a group or an agency that's out there doing it. I think there was like 13 properties on the list or something along those lines. I don't have all of the facts, but I know that the one thing that they're short of is money. And you have a group and a body that's out there that's willing to do the work. And it looks like here we're going to have more money coming to the table. I wish I could remember the name of the group now, but sure. If groups like that, I do see that the board chair back there, Ms. Trimmer, I believe, is sitting back there. Maybe I can call her up. But what I'm saying is I see an opportunity for a group that's already established with properties already identified, and they lack funding. And so as we continue to build this ecosystem of dollars and plans, we have a group that's already doing the work. And so I think that there will be an appetite on my end maybe to offer an amendment if that's something you're interested in doing, or through the chair to the auditors, that says the group that we have involved right now be included into this process. Is that if I'm able to do that? I don't know.
Through the chair to Councilmember Freeman, trying to think, since we don't have a program with the Community Foundation right now, I don't know how to make that happen. If we had an ongoing program, we could easily set the money aside. I guess you could put intent language in the legislation.
That makes sense. I guess, how do we choose the Community Foundation? It seems like if we would have just left it without that, then it would have given other opportunities for other organizations. Through the chair to the auditors.
Through the chair to Councilmember Freeman, I don't think anyone has chosen the Community Foundation. The mayor's budget last year came to you with a plan to partner with the Community Foundation, but that was removed from the budget entirely. So I don't know that there is anything in place right now that has, quote, chosen the Community Foundation.
And through the chair to Council President-elect, and I missed the notice meeting, my apologies. Was the Community Foundation brought up in the notice meeting at all, Councilman Carrico?
Through the chair, I believe when Mr. Paluzzo started talking about priorities for affordable housing, he did mention that there was a leverage, possibly, but he didn't stay the full meeting.
All right, thank you. And I'm all about, kind of force multipliers, so I would be a fool to walk away from more dollars. So I'm definitely supportive, but I just would love to tie something in that loops. Ms. Trimmer, Mr. Chair, may I call Ms. Trimmer down so I can just get the right name of the organization? Ms. Trimmer, do you mind coming down and giving your name, address, and then the name of the group that was in charge of the land bank or whatever it was that we did to create those dollars?
Thank you so much. Cindy Trimmer, 1 Independent Drive, Suite 1200. I'm the incoming chair of the Jacksonville Community Land Trust. We're focusing on building single-family affordable housing, so it sounds like it would be distinct from what they're talking about doing multifamily affordable housing. We do have an initial tranche of property that we received as part of the First Look legislation that was adopted under the prior administration, and we're working on coming out of the ground on a handful of those as we speak.
All right, thank you so much. And I'll tell you, there's probably a bigger appetite for single family than there is multifamily. I'm a big fan of just affordable housing and workforce housing. So I do think that the worlds could come together. Through the chair to the auditors, how do we get title language into multifamily?
Through the chair to Councilmember Freeman, I think you would just make an amendment to the amendment to identify it as multifamily.
I want it to be open for single family.
Right now, it's open. It's open to everyone.
And the reason why I asked that is because you just heard someone who's an expert in land use and zoning, and their interpretation of our conversation today and was that it was for multifamily. So I wanted to make sure that that was clear. And so hearing what you're saying, I'm going to leave that alone. But I definitely think that I want to see other groups involved with it more so than just the DuPont Foundation. My next question is on the countywide workforce development. Happens to be a lane that I'm pretty involved in and passionate about. Who will own, through the chair to whoever can answer it, who will own this and oversee it?
Through the chair to Councilmember Freeman. Similar to the affordable housing, this is just being put into a pot for someone to come back with a plan on how to spend it. So it would depend on who approached the council, whether it be a council member or the mayor's office or an outside entity, on how to use the funding. Right now, it's just being put into a pot that for someone to come later at a later point in time on using it for workforce development.
All right, thank you. And the reason why I specifically asked that question, and I'm partial to the builders as well, I saw them come up and advocate, but didn't see others. And so I was just trying to make sure that there wasn't an optics or a perception that the cake is baked and these dollars are going straight to NEFBA or any particular organization. It would definitely be open to others. I get it. We live in a world of ambiguity. I'm not a fan of it. But at the end of the day, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, it all still comes back to us to vote on at the end, and we can have the final say in it. So with that, I'll be supportive.
All right, for the record, there was no motion added during that for an amendment. So, Mr. Boylan, followed by Mr. Carlucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I thank you, Councilman Freeman, for letting it lag, because I thought that's the wise thing to do. And understanding that entities will come back with opportunities for us to identify the usage of these funds. Council Vice President, President-elect Carrico, a question to you. I stepped back from it this morning, and I see the sausage was being made at this notice meeting. There was some getting back and forth as to how the money was going. And I initially thought about putting forward an amendment to put a finer tooth comb on the fact that the money was going to go to JU, FSCJ, and the DRDB. But it sounds like I stepped away from that. But given your conversation you mentioned you had with President Cost this morning, $10 million isn't going to go too far if we spread it around too thin. So your thoughts on being a little more focused as to how those $10 million, you don't have to say you're going to decree it today, but obviously under your leadership, the next council, you're going to have a hand in deciding how those priorities will be set.
Sure. Thank you for the question. Through the chair to Mr. Boylan. Yeah, I don't have a fully baked budget on those $10 million. I just know that there are groups that stand to make a big impact on workforce development in the city going forward. And this is a starting place to allocate some of those dollars. We certainly have CBA dollars to match when we see these projects and the projects grow in other buckets, possibly in the mayor's budget when that comes out, as it's a priority for all of us for workforce development. The JU project is a large public-private partnership. They're willing to meet with anyone. They've got plans, and the need right now is to, I believe there's some dollars earmarked in CIP, but the need right now is to get the engineering study and the plans on what really needs to build the youth sports complex that could be really a regional hub for tourism and travel, sports tourism here. And it just seems like a project that could really ignite the Arlington area, and it's pretty baked. It's just been on a shelf for a little bit. So with my priorities being youth engagement in the future of our city during my presidency, that's a big one. I just find this project fascinating and willing to look forward to seeing what it really would take from the city standpoint. And this is really just a starting point because there are some dollars here, and it's a priority to kind of earmark them and put them in that bucket. I know Councilman Arias spoke a lot about the FSCJ project out at Cecil and the workforce development initiative out there. So this $10 million isn't going to fully fund any of those things. But it's a good starting point to see where these projects can go and what future dollars we will need to actually fund them and make them happen.
Well, it's kind of interesting, and thank you for that response. It was very helpful. Maybe we're setting a precedent here. We did this with the CBA. So, okay, great, we've got this big project, we want to get focused, but what about everybody else in this process? And I'm not sure I bought into that philosophy completely, but I understand it now. This is helpful in understanding, yes, we want to focus on building downtown, but at the same time, kind of spreading the wealth as part of the process. Not everyone's going to get what they want in that process, but then get something in that process. And the other point I want to make clear, and I know that you've had some conversations, I understand you have anyway. Another critical component to downtown, obviously, is the quality of our parks and program systems associated with that. And as you may know, I serve on the steering committee that's working on the Jacksonville Riverfront Alliance. And I think we're going to be seeing some more conversations about that. But I think there's a consensus of, I hope so, as I mentioned to that group, I said, you got to change policy if you're going to chase the dollars. And so we got to put the focus on the policy of that. But understanding it's as important for us to have a vibrant park system downtown as it is for us to have a vibrant residential section, because one feeds into the other and vice versa. So I look forward to those conversations going forward.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Glad you brought that up, and I'm aware that there is the group that's looking at the programming, and I know there's a lot of conversations being had on the cost. It's like we've been given a horse with the parks we're building, but we've got to feed that horse, and it's pretty expensive, I understand, but I haven't heard a number. So as a council, we do need to start having conversations about what we are going to do moving forward in the administration as well on how to fund and activate these wonderful parks that are going to help activate growth in downtown. And I'm glad you see the benefit of workforce. That's something also when we talk about companies coming to town and even building in downtown and restaurants wanting to come and is feeding that workforce. So the actual teaching of things might not happen downtown, but it's going to help spur all the growth and development around it. That's why it all kind of fits in my mind. But thanks for listening.
Over to Mr. Carlucci.
Mr. Chair, I've been jotting down some notes as we've been going through, so I want to just make a few comments. First, I appreciate the incoming council president and the way that he's weighed in on spreading some of the money, but still leaving a substantial amount for that Bay Street corridor, which I think is a critical part of our core downtown. But it also spreads money around for other things, so I appreciate that. I also want to say I appreciate the support that we had for this bill with the amendment, as was done in neighborhoods by our council president, current council president, White. Councilman Joe Carlucci found the money. Well, I think there's a lesson there for all of us. You know what? He knew what he wanted to do. He dug in. He went to the council auditors and found the money. And I guess that's the salesman coming out of him. And he did a good job with that, I think. And I was proud to be a co-sponsor of the original bill. And it passed 6-1 in neighborhoods. The other thing is, this is a great opportunity, I think, for the council to take leadership on so many important issues, not the least of which is affordable housing, which I hear about that. I can't say I hear about it every day, but I hear about it all the time, no matter where I go. And I think this is a good chance for us to put our stamp on the importance of affordable housing. And the quicker we pass this bill, the quicker we give the DuPont Foundation a chance to triple the money. I've had great success with the DuPont Foundation, the Community Foundation. These are people that are great resources and assets to this community, and anytime we can leverage them, we should leverage them as much as we can. I've got a project right now I'm working with the Community Foundation on, and wow, they are fantastic. They're just great. So I hope that we can pass this bill with the Neighborhoods Amendment, and I hope it gets through finance tomorrow. And thank you for your time, sir.
All right, we see no other speakers in the queue. I think I'm going to hand the gavel off to the vice chair. I'll make a few comments, and I might have an amendment. I like this bill, and I dislike this bill. I mostly dislike it, but I think I might have a way to make it a little bit better. The reason I like it is because we're sweeping money away from the administration right now that would otherwise appear in the proposed budget, and we're saving it for our deliberation at a later date. And frankly, anytime there's an overaccrual in funds and a counterbalance of an underaccrual, maybe we should have a formalized process to sweep that money into reserves for council, because frankly, some of the worst aspects of government budgeting is when there's leftover money and everyone just tries to run and spend it at the end of the year. It's why government budgets always continually increase rather than sometimes on occasion they should decrease. But in any event, the reason I dislike the bill is because what we're doing here is sitting here budgeting. We're sitting here apportioning $45 million, the kind of thing that we could be doing in budgets, the kind of thing we should be doing in budgets, because in budgets we know how much money we're going to have in revenue. We know what our priorities are, and we can allocate spending. We shouldn't really be doing this 2 weeks before budgets. In the last day, I've heard a lot of organizations say that their priorities are downtown investment. I think that's a priority that everybody has, but I'm not sure that's often what we hear the priority of the people is, particularly with the last UNF poll we've seen, particularly after we've spent $775 million on the stadium, $100 million on a graduate campus, $190 million in riverfront parks, a similar amount in the Emerald Trail, $90 million in the Pearl District, and at least another $100 million for various projects downtown, such as Related, River's Edge, Rise Doro, Juliet's Balcony, and a whole host of other things. What I am hearing loud and clear from the people is their main priorities are staying in their home or buying their first home or affording groceries. People are hurting right now, and we've got to figure out how to help them. And one of those ways to help them is make sure they have more money in their pockets. We don't even know yet, looking at the next budget year, what our revenue is going to be. We haven't seen what the collections are going to be in ad valorem collections. But now we've carved out 3 buckets by amendment. We did that earlier in neighborhoods. And what I like about this, and why I say there are parts I like and there's parts I dislike and there's parts that I think we can improve, is that these go into 3 buckets, 3 contingencies, special contingencies. We're not voting away the money now. The money gets put in a contingency. We can revisit it during budgets or beyond, and it takes a 2/3 vote to get out. One of the things that I don't like is there's a restriction on 2 of the 3. but one has a including but not limited to. So what I would like to do, in case our priorities change when we see the amount of revenue we're getting in, and it may not be what we've spelled out here, and the $45 million may be put to other better use in the future, where the $10 million special counsel contingency says set aside for activities including but not limited to county workforce development, I'd like that same language in the other two contingencies. So $30 million set aside for activities related to activities including but not limited to downtown riverfront residential incentives, and $5 million set aside for activities including but not limited to countywide affordable housing contingency. That just means that if things change based on the revenue that we're getting in during the budget cycle, it's a little bit easier for us as council to say, well, actually, maybe that's not as big a priority as this could be. So I want to make the motion that we apply that language, set aside for activities including but not limited to, also to the $30 million contingency and the $5 million contingency.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? It's been seconded for discussion. I have two names in the queue. Mr. Carlucci, you're recognized.
Okay.
Councilmember Carlucci, you're recognized.
Thank you. I really appreciate the spirit in which you're doing that. But I don't know this because I can't talk to my boy about anything except fishing and grandkids. But I think the sponsor of the bill would like this to be, I don't think he would be inclined to support that. And the other thing, too, is if we support this bill as it is without your amendment, we can still make changes during the budget. There's nothing that says we can't undo what we've done here through the budget system. But what I don't want to do is send out something that doesn't have clear direction. And the clear direction is for $30 million for downtown, for that corridor, which I think is beautifully selected. The second thing is it directs money that people can count on in terms of FJC, workforce, and public housing, or affordable housing. I think if we do that, it's not sending a clear enough signal. That's what would bother me in it. I think your amendment is very well intended, and I get it. And I've made amendments like that before. But this is one that, just because we're close to the budget doesn't mean we can't take it back up in the budget, number one. But number two is we take dollars like this and we appropriate to different places. And I felt like we really found a good consensus this morning in neighborhoods. And I'd like to keep it like that. And if we see fit that we need to change it through the budget, that can be done, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? Through the chair to Mr. Peterson.
Through the chair to Councilmember Carlucci, I think with 13 votes, or assuming this bill passes with 13 votes, you could repurpose these dollars for anything.
Okay. And then one last thing is the other concern I have about the language. I think it puts the DuPont Foundation in kind of a holding pattern on going after the additional $15 million. And I got to tell you, public housing is, forget the poll. We know public housing is a huge issue in this city. We know that. We hear it all the time. We talk about it all the time. $5 million to gain $15 million. But with this amendment, I'm afraid it puts them in a holding pattern and doesn't give them the leverage they need to go after that additional dollars. So, in all due respect, Mr. Chair, I have so much respect for you. I love the way you run these meetings. I love the way you think most of the time. And but I think it might be well for you to think the way I'm thinking on this one this time. And I just don't support the amendment, and I hope the committee will continue moving ahead with what we did in neighborhoods this morning, so we have some surety. And then if something comes up in budget and oops, well, we just can't, then we might have to take another look. But we're just talking, I mean, these are places I think the money's going to wind up going to anyway. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it. I probably exceeded my time, but appreciate your indulgence.
No worries. That's what committee's for, so not a problem there. Next is Councilmember Johnson. You're recognized.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vice Chair. So a couple things. First of all, and I certainly respect not only the bill sponsor, but his daddy. And it's good to be able to have this kind of work. I will say, I know you said that you weren't at the noticed meeting through the chair, but it wasn't perfect, and no bill is, right? The boundaries of which we selected, we discussed at the notice meeting, needed to be expanded. It wasn't that beautiful. I want to make sure that we understood that there was some work that put in to get us to this point. But a few things I want to push back a little bit on is I do like the measure. I do believe at this point, unless I hear something different, I'm going to support the measure from Councilman Howland here. But a few things I want to push back on. One is that we say that, that's the reason why government budgets increase, and that's just not the case. One of the reasons that government budgets increase, Mr. Chair, is because stuff just costs more. It's not that people just sit around waiting to push things up. It's because you look at them and the cost of doing business, whether it be goods or services, just costs more. And I don't want people to get the incorrect idea that we're just sitting around finding things to spend money on. Additionally, a lot of the projects, I won't pull all of them out that you stated during your comments, but you talked about things like the Emerald Trail and other projects, and you threw out these millions of dollars that we spend. But you also have to put in context that some of those dollars aren't our money. They come from grants, specifically the Emerald Trail, for one. The majority of those funds that were spent came from grants that had specific prohibitions on what could and could not be done with those funds. So I get what you're saying, but I don't want us to conflate that and make it seem as though that we're just spending taxpayer money, taxpayer dollars from our Duval County citizens willy-nilly. I do believe this council and this city does a really good job at it, but we got to make sure that when we say something, we're saying fact and that we mean what we say. However, I do believe that the clear direction, back to Councilman Carlucci, the clear direction that was alluded to does exist. We still need a 2/3 majority, whether it's down the road, and I tried to reach out to DuPont really quick via text. I do believe that this would not stop their movement on the things that they're trying to do, nor ours, because you still have a 2/3 majority that it's going to put in there. And the aspiration is specifically, and maybe you can come up and speak to it if you wish, but the aspiration is housing or what are the other things? Workforce development or whatever the activities are. But at the end of the day, you'll still need that 2/3 majority that'll move forward, that you'll take from the council to move forward. So I think the chairman has a great idea, at least to allow us flexibility. And that's one of the things I think is important for us to do the work that we are tasked to do. So with my time, Mr. Chair, if you could just give a brief yes or no, or what do you think about the addition of that language into the bill through the chair?
Sure. Chris Crothers, Jesse Ball DuPont Fund. My address is on file. With regard to the question about, again, whether we could go out and raise the money, it's a challenge. We've been at this for about 2 years, right? Trying to work with the city and the council to try and leverage capital to be able to put affordable housing together. We have banks that are lined up that are waiting to consider whether they're going to use their money to put into affordable housing, or they're going to do something else like maybe ball fields and put their name on it, right? So I think it's incumbent on all of us who are interested in affordable housing to get this ball rolling as soon as possible. Yes, if we had the support of the council, we could go out and raise the money much, much quicker. It does kick the ball down the road. We're talking 2026. My colleague James and I, we are already considering how do we move this forward on our own. However, it's much, much less money leveraged at the end of the day.
With all due respect, that wasn't the question.
Okay.
My question was specifically if that language that the chair recommended was put there, is that, and I'm trying to talk between you as well as the community foundation, because when I came onto this council, there's an option with the community foundation, which we kind of kicked the ball on that, which would have helped us. My question to you is that specific language going to stop you from going to get those funds?
It will not stop us from going to get those funds.
That's what we needed. Thank you very much.
All right.
You have the floor still.
Yes. Do you mind? Because Councilman Boylan, I excited utterance, whatever you want to call it in court. Can you come back? Is it going to make it harder for you to get those funds with that language? Because at the end of the day, you still need 2/3 majority through the chair. Does it make it harder, in your opinion?
It's hard to say. Right now, I truly do think that having the city's commitment behind any effort that we're pushing forward brings that other capital to us much quicker. So my guess would be it does make it a little bit harder.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Dr. Johnson. And I'll make a few comments, and then we'll go back to the amendment sponsor and give him his options. And I'll say again, that was a tough question to answer because it's a policy decision, and we sit in these hot seats. But I've walked down a path with said organization only to be left at the altar. So I'm just saying, yes, it could be harder if we change how it is, but even if we left it the same, from my experience, there's still no guarantee they're going to come back. Okay, so I do want to be on record, and I would love to meet if you ever want to know the scenario that I'm talking about. I'll gladly, behind closed doors, share that with you. But I guess I'm the chair right now, acting chair, to Council President-elect. You were in the notice meeting. You seem to be carrying the water because Councilmember Joe Carlucci is unable to be with us today. Per your understanding of your talks with Councilmember Joe Carlucci, I can't ask you to assume, or how do you feel about this amendment?
Sure. Thank you. Through the chair to the sitting chair. I think the amendment is an attempt to build consensus and land the plane, and that's kind of what my role is here today as being someone that's been in all the meetings. So if it helps the incoming vice president land the plane to put those safeguards in, I don't think he has any ill intent to come back in budget and destroy everything that was done in this committee here. So I would trust him that it's just a clause that helps him sleep better at night, and I would accept that and vote it up.
All right, thank you. And then two more questions. Well, just a statement, and I was just going to remind this body, when we talk about doing things, we can always come back and do it again in the budget. But in Councilor Salem's president year, in the very first budget, I brought an amendment as the will of a councilman on an initiative that was a top priority of mine when I was president, which was on homelessness. It did not change the policy. It was simply saying, let's remove it out of this format so that we could get the dollars on the street sooner. You win some, you lose some up here, all right? And I lost that one and what I kept hearing time and time again is it's the mayor's budget, and she has a right to have her budget stay intact. So we're sending split messages, at least to a person like me that just loves to observe and try to be consistent. I sat down respectfully and took my medicine. And now I keep hearing over and over again that we can always come back during budget cycle. What's to say we're not going to get those same pressures? And it wasn't just pressures from my colleagues rising and speaking against it. I got it from civic leaders as well. So if we're going to do something, I agree that now is the time to do it, because I believe we're going to continue to get that type of pressure that we are attacking the administration or we don't want her to be successful. And that's not the case. And I think this committee work is showing that we're trying to work to get an idea, get a concept moving forward that I think could be beneficial for our city as a whole, because this does partner with it. So I'll support the amendment because it gives guardrails, and we'll conclude with, you want to go last, or because Councilman Carlucci's in for a second bite at apple?
Oh, okay.
Councilmember Carlucci, you're recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate what our incoming council president said. I know your intent's nothing but good. I get that totally. My concern, though, is really, my biggest concern is on the public housing, and I don't know whether you would entertain taking that language away from the public housing part, leaving it with everything else, because public housing is such a big issue and we have such an opportunity to gain $15 million on it, and leave that language for everything else. But if we could single out public housing, then they have that, they have a more full commitment from the city, and I think that's what they need. I know that's what they need because I've been involved in trying to help different organizations get the dollars. That's why I brought it up to begin with. So if you would be agreeable to that, then I would happily support the amendment. I don't know if I need to make, before I make an amendment on that, I'd like to hear if you're willing, because I don't want to make the amendment and cause any consternation, but that would make me feel better. That would make me sleep better at night, knowing that public housing, we gave them the commitment. The other things, we're leaving little leeway. I can live with that.
So, Councilmember Matt Carlucci, you're asking for the finance chair or rules chair, Councilmember Howland, to agree or disagree.
If he
Councilmember
would,
Howland,
if he would agree to my request of at least taking the public housing out of that wording he put in there, so it would, so the 15 million would be a clear commitment of that $5 million, which would, I think, add leverage to the foundation to acquire the extra 15 million and leave everything like else it is. But
Got it. And it's I think I understand. And it's $5 million.
Does that make sense?
Councilmember Howland, would you care to respond?
Well, I guess I have no problem doing that, but because it's 5 of the 45. But my intent to apply the language that neighborhoods this morning applied to the $10 million council contingency for countywide workforce development, to also the countywide affordable housing and the downtown riverfront residential incentives was just simply to increase this council's flexibility for when we're able to do budgeting and understand what our revenue is. I'd prefer not to, but if that seems to be it, before I make a final decision, Dr. Johnson, what do you think?
So thank you so much. Are you done, Councilmember Howland? All right. Councilmember Johnson, we don't have an amendment on the floor right now. So he posed a question through the chair to you.
Yeah.
So now I have Ms. LaPera, but we do not have a motion on the floor. So Councilman Carlucci, you still have the floor. Are you done making your comments?
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I just want to thank council member and our chair, Howland, for
clarify. Just for to put us in the right posture, I think we need to have an amendment on the floor. And so, Ms. Stefopoulos, do you mind? Ms. LaPera was in the queue, and so I was going to get to her.
Well,
Would you? I'll start with Ms. LaPera, and then I'll come to you, Ms. Stefopoulos.
Oh,
They're saying we're out of posture right now, or we're not in the right posture.
Through the vice chair to Councilmember Carlucci. So I don't recall hearing Councilmember Howland say public housing. He was just saying with respect to the affordable housing.
I meant affordable housing. To take the language out for affordable housing, my goof.
No, we understood. Thank you for
You
cleaning
do have an
it up.
amendment pending because
Yes,
Councilmember Howland.
we do.
I apologize.
No, you're good. You're good. We understand, Councilman Howland.
I just wanted to ask Councilman Howland, because it's his amendment. I didn't want to make an amendment until he considered my request that, again, will make me feel and walk out of here feeling much better. If you can work with that. Thank you.
And thank you, Councilman Carlucci, for that. And basically, they were just cleaning up the language between public and affordable. So we just got everything cleaned up.
I'd prefer not to amend my amendment, but what Councilman Carlucci can do is propose an amendment to the amendment to the amendment. He cannot. Why not?
So
you can only do it twice?
Yeah, so you get in neighborhoods this morning, that was explained. And we still have an amendment on the floor. So you're amending the amendment on the floor.
Okay.
And so we have to take up your amendment, get that off the table, and then we can have another amendment. And there's no such thing as a friendly amendment. I also want to put that on the record because I kept hearing that this morning.
I'd rather take up my amendment, and then Mr. Carlucci can.
All righty. So Councilmember Johnson, you were next in the queue. Councilmember Carlucci, you heard his response. He's not in favor of it right now, but we'd love to have support later. So we're ready. On the Howland amendment, all in favor, please raise your hand. Did we get a count? Those opposed, you have the same right? All right, the Howland amendment passes. And so now that takes us to the neighborhoods amendment as amended. I'm the chair now, so I'll entertain a motion to move the neighborhoods amendment. Got a motion and a second on it. Can you please hop in the queue, those that want to talk on this? And you were in the queue last. Did you want to? You're good? Councilmember Carlucci, you're the only one in the queue.
Thank you. You're doing a good job, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, whatever. Is it through the chair and vice chair and Ms. Stefopoulos, can I now make an amendment to support? I want to support your amendment, I really do, but I just can't let go of the public housing because I know how important it is, and I want to give the foundation the full muscle and the full backing that we're committed to it. And we put some language in there that just excludes, not public housing, but the affordable housing out of the language which he is proposing for the other elements.
So through the chair.
So I want to make sure I'm understanding. So Councilmember Carlucci, you're asking OGC for an opportunity to explain an amendment?
Well, I'd like to make an amendment
Okay.
excluding affordable housing out of that language which Council.
Okay, I get it. All right, Ms. Stefopoulos, and we have a second on that. Ms. Stefopoulos, you're recognized. Thank you.
Thank you. So I was just going to make sure to kind of summarize where we're at for the committee, and then so that you all can appropriately address Councilmember Carlucci's proposed amendment to the amendment. So the neighborhoods amendment, as modified by the Howland amendment, was just moved, and the Howland amendment added the including but not limited to language to all aspects of the appropriation. So it would be applicable to the $30 million, it would be applicable to the $10 million, and it would be applicable to the $5 million. What the Carlucci amendment to the amendment would accomplish is walking back that change to the affordable housing language. So therefore, the including but not limited to language would only apply to the $30 million and to the other $10 million relative to those capital and other types of projects that were listed in the neighborhoods amendment. And so that is what the Carlucci amendment to the amendment would accomplish.
I could not have said that any better. Thank God for Mary Stefopoulos.
So moved. All right, so we have a Carlucci amendment. Councilmember Boylan, did I hear you second that? And so it's been seconded. Any discussion on the Carlucci amendment? All right, seeing none, we'll take this with a hand vote. All in favor of the Carlucci amendment, please raise your hand. Those opposed, raise your hand. And it has been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no one in the queue, please open. No?
Through the chair to.
We did that. And then we took Councilmember Carlucci's amendment to the amendment.
Now we have to move the bills amended.
Go ahead.
To the vice chair, you need to move the neighborhoods amendment as amended.
Let's do it.
Take a voice vote or a hand vote.
We're going to do a hand vote. So we're going to do a hand vote on the neighborhoods amendment as amended. All in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed have the same right. The amendment carries.
Second.
Are we rolling them? Thank you. No need to roll them? We're good? All right. It's been moved and properly second. Please open the ballot, record your vote.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, by your vote, 2025-0385 passes, and I have the gavel back, I believe. All right, we move, thank you everybody for sitting through that. We move next to item number 10, which has an amendment on it. That's 2025-0402. We have a motion and a second on the amendment. Mr. Peterson, care to explain, please?
Yes, sir. Through the chair to the committee, the amendment corrects the HUD award and the appropriation amount to $602,328. Housing was notified after they finalized the bill the final amount that they will receive from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. I will attach revised Exhibits 1 and 2, the BT and the schedule of proposed funding, which you do have before you at your seat, how they plan to use those funding to correct the amounts, and then attach the HUD award letter as a new exhibit.
I see no speakers in the queue on the amendment. We'll take this vote verbally. All those in favor of the amendment indicate by saying aye. Aye. All against say no. The amendment passes. We have a motion from Mr. Freeman, a second from Mr. Boylan on the bill as amended. And we have Mr. Jeffrey here if anyone has any questions. Seeing none, let's open the ballot and record your vote.
Six yeas, 1 nay.
By your vote, 2025-0402 passes. We move next to item number 11, 2024-0404, also an amendment. We have a motion from Mr. Freeman, a second from Dr. Johnson on the amendment, and Mr. Peterson.
Yes, sir. Through the chair of the committee, the amendment corrects the date of the Environmental Protection Board meeting at which this was approved, revises the language to authorize the carryover of funding through fiscal year 27-28, which matches the reporting requirements of the St. Johns Riverkeeper, attaches revised Exhibit 1, which is the BT, to correct the activity that the funds are being appropriated towards, attaches revised Exhibit 3, which is the MOU with the Riverkeeper, to include missing attachments that were referenced in the agreement and correct Scribner's errors, and then also correct Scribner's errors in the bill.
I see no speakers in the queue on the amendment. We'll take this vote verbally. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All against saying no. The amendment passes. We have a motion and a second on the bill as amended, and we have Mr. Richardson in the audience if anyone has any questions. And I won't ask you the fund balance because I already went through it with the auditor this morning. So thank you, Mr. Richardson. Seeing no speakers in the queue, let's open the ballot and record your vote.
Seven yeas, 0 nays.
By your vote, 2025-0404 passes. We've already, item number 12, 2025-0410 is deferred due to Planning Commission. Item number 13, 2025-0411, we have an amendment. We have a motion from Mr. Freeman, a second from Mr. Miller on the Neighborhoods Amendment. Mr. Peterson.
Yes, sir. Through the chair to the committee, the amendment will attach a final report from the JSEB Special Committee as an exhibit to the legislation that recommended the changes, including an amendment to Section 126.606A10 to make the name of the EBO office consistent throughout the legislation, updating department training language that's within our current code as it relates to the JSEB training that is provided, clarifying the requirements for obtaining and maintaining the new Prime Mentor status and JSEB program eligibility for JSEB members or JSEB Prime Mentors, correct formatting of new language just to make sure it lines up correctly with our Muni Code, striking duplicative language. There was a paragraph that was inserted twice, and then various Scribners.
All right, seeing no speakers on the amendment, let's take this vote verbally. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All against say no. The amendment passes. We have a motion and a second on the bill as amended. Seeing no speakers in the queue, Mr. Freeman, I hate to put you on the spot here, but you've been involved with JSEB for like 6 years. Just wanted to make sure you're in favor of this increase from 500 to 750.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I did sit in on the conversations. It was actually the work of the JSEB Special Committee, Council Members Amaro, Arias, and I want to say, was it Johnson? And so I definitely respect the work they did, and will honor that and support it.
Fantastic. I figured you had 6 years of history on that one. It'd be worthwhile to hear it. Over to Dr. Johnson.
I actually wanted to, just quickly before we pass this, as I hope you will, committee, wanted to commend and thank former Council President Freeman. A lot of the work that you did on JSEB set the tone for this. So through the chair, I want to publicly say thank you and the work that you continuously do for small businesses in this community. I made some changes in this amendment, so I'm also thankful to our council for helping us to get this to the right place. We've been working hard on this, and to the committee members, we put in some real long hours. We were hoping to get more money, but we believe that this is a start to get us where we need to be for our small business community. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. And seeing no other speakers in the queue, we have a motion and a second on the bill as amended. Let's open the ballot and record your vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
And by your vote, 2025-0411 passes. We move next item number 14, which is on second read. That's 2025-0430. So is item number 15, 0432. Item number 16, 0435. And item number 17, 0438. Which brings us to item number 18, 2025-0441. We have a motion looking for a second, and a second on 2025-0441. Seeing no speakers in the queue. Oh, actually, we have a speaker, Mr. Miller.
Just real quick, thank you, Mr. President. Through the President, I'd like to be added as co-sponsor, please. Thank you.
I'd like to be added too. That's Howland, if we could. All right, we got Mr. Gay, Mr. Carlucci, Mr. Freeman, Mr. Boylan, and I think Dr. Johnson. Yes, sir, Dr. Johnson. Committee amendment. Seeing no speakers in the queue, let's open the ballot and record your vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
By your vote, 2025-0441 passes. Item number 19 is on second read. That's 0442. Bringing us to item 20-0443. We have a motion and a second on the bill. Mr. Carlucci wants to be a co-sponsor. And seeing no other speakers in the queue, let's open the ballot, record your vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
I've been told that.
By your vote, 2025-0443 passes. And we move next to item number 21, 2025-0445. We have a motion and a second on the bill. Seeing no speakers in the queue, let's open the ballot, record your vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
By your vote, 2025-0445 passes. Next item on the agenda is item number 2022. That's 2025-0446. We have an emergency. We have a motion second on the emergency. Mr. Peterson, care to explain the nature of the emergency, please?
Yes, sir. Through the chair of the committee, the nature of the emergency is that KHA filed this exact same grant back in February of this year. Due to having to work out some additional terms with the Department of Treasury, they requested withdrawal, and you did approve that withdrawal in March. They've worked out those terms, and so coming back to you with this bill, and the reason for the emergency is they want to start implementing the grant as soon as possible.
All right, seeing no speakers in the queue, we'll take this emergency vote verbally. All those in favor of the emergency indicate by saying aye. Aye. All against say no. The emergency passes. Well, we have a motion on the amendment and a second. Mr. Peterson.
Yes, sir. Through the chair of the committee, we'll correct the name of one of the providers. It's listed in the legislation as the Family Learning Partnership, but their actual legal name is the Miami-Dade Family Learning Partnership. Strike references to a revised BT. The BT is not revised. Correct section numbering, and then attach a revised on file, which is the award from the Department of Treasury, to include all of the referenced exhibits.
Very good. Seeing no other speakers in the queue, we'll take this vote on the amendment verbally. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All against say no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The amendment passes. We'll entertain a motion on the bill as amended as an emergency.
Move the bill as an emergency as amended.
That's right. All right. We have a motion from Mr. Miller, a second from Mr. Boylan. And we got Mr. Freeman in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I currently am a state board member for the Children's Home Society, and so out of an abundance of caution, I'll be abstaining from this vote until I meet with ethics. So thank you.
Noted. Mr. Freeman will abstain. We again have a motion and a second on the bill as an emergency as amended. Let's open the ballot. Record your vote.
Six yeas, 0 nays, 1 abstention.
By your vote, 2025-0446 passes. We move next to the final item on the agenda, item number 23, which is 2025-0447. We have a motion and a second on the bill. We have Dr. Johnson on the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very briefly, I want to take a moment to celebrate this guy who I hope you'll join me in passing this. This is my friend, Roland Powell. He was born Roland Powell, but he is all across the world, around the world, and across the country, Lil Duval. And that shows you just how much he loves this community. He ended up on BET's Comic View. He's a Billboard top-selling artist. But what he always talks about, you can tell from his name, Lil Duval, that he loves Jacksonville. In fact, he was on the BET Awards. On the stage, he went out of his way to ensure that he could represent by wearing an Edward Waters University band uniform so he could let people know the things about Jacksonville he can do and does do. He has a Lil Duval Day where he gives back to the community. He does it quite regularly. And he will be doing a Lil Duval Day concert, which is what this is about. It's hard to believe this city has never honored him, but I'm so glad that council is taking this step to say to Roland, thank you for investing in Jacksonville. And as an actor and a performer and a comedian, every time he opens his mouth around the world, you can hear him and the people in the audience chanting, Duval. So thanks to Lil Duval for all he does, and let's celebrate him for Lil Duval Day, which is an amazing concert. It's been going on for years, but they'll be coming up in a couple weeks over at the ViStar Veterans Memorial Arena. Thank you, Roland.
All right, well said, Dr. Johnson. Seeing no other speakers in the queue, let's open the ballot. Record your vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, by your vote, 2025-0447 passes. That concludes our agenda. So I just want to let everyone know this is the final committee meeting of this Rules Committee. And to my colleagues and staff, I think this was a wonderful rules year. We tackle a lot of big issues. Thank you all so very much for being a terrific committee. And I look forward to working with you in the next council year. Oh, gosh, we have the queue up. We'll go with Mr. Carlucci, Mr. Freeman, followed by Dr. Johnson, Mr. Dennis.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't say what I think a fine job you've done as committee chair.
Well, thank you, sir.
You have been gracious with time. You have been gracious with debate, and I think you've been very fair and an honest broker. And I really, that's really the biggest thing that I think council members want, at least this council member, is just to be treated fairly. And you've done a great job at that. We don't always agree, but that's why there's 19 of us.
Right.
So, and also, thank you for the beverage, and I'll use it at the proper times. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to Mr. Freeman, Dr. Johnson, Mr. Boylan, and then we'll go to Mr. Dennis.
Thank you, Chair. I, too, want to commend you on an amazing year. I love your thoroughness, your attention to details, and your willingness to allow every voice to be heard. And so I wanted to go on record saying it, and then I will say an inside cheesy joke and just say you ran a very clean meeting, and so I will refer to you as Mr. Clean from here on out.
better than Voldemort, or yeah. Dr. Johnson, followed by Mr. Boylan.
I just wanted to add to that as well, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your graciousness. We may not always agree, but we can agree that we want to make Jacksonville better. You're a great guy. You get it honestly. And doing some research about you, I got to know who your dad was and your mom. I had a chance to spend some time with, and I understand. And so thank you to them, but thank you to your family for sharing you with us over this year. You've been an amazing leader, and I look forward to your leadership as the vice president. Thank you.
I appreciate that. All right. Mr. Boylan's up.
Yeah, I appreciate. I tried to jump on the queue first because I knew I was going to get beat up by everybody else in this process. I'm going to tell a quick story. We were at, I forget, it was a labor relations thing, and we were talking about walking inside a ship, and you kept banging your head on top of the ship, and I said, well, that explains a lot.
Yes, exactly.
No, in all seriousness, I said that out loud then.
This is a memory, right?
That's right. That's exactly what I meant. But I do want to echo the comments. I was not here to support your election to the leadership, but I look forward to you serving in that capacity, as well as your colleague, Councilman Carrico. But thank you again for your quality leadership in this committee this past year. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Over to Mr. Miller, followed by Mr. Gay. Mr. Gay's like, I got to get on the queue, right? If everyone has to get on the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair, actually to the chair, echo what my colleagues have said. Great job. And this is hard for me to say this from one Army guy to a Navy guy, but go Navy. Great job. Good stuff.
Thank you. And Mr. Gay.
I want to say appreciate your leadership on this committee, and I think you've done an exceptional job giving us all fair, ample time to speak and voice our concerns. And I don't know if it's a Mr. Clean or a lollipop. I'm not sure which one it should be, but I appreciate everything you've done. Thank you.
Oh, man. And you know what? I should have done Mr. Dennis, who was on the queue. I should have had you first, so it ends on a good note, right?
Through the chair, so I will do the sandwich method. I know that I was only here like half of the year and really enjoyed it. But I do want to get some clarification on something that you talked about earlier, policy issues, and the administration want to work with the incoming leadership to discuss policy versus funding bills and things like that. So I just kind of went through and looked at a few bills that are in committee that have already passed, that has happened just recently, that you could put in a policy bucket. So again, we kind of need to work together, not pick and choose on what on what gets introduced on behalf of the mayor and not. And I'll give you two really quick that's in committee now. 285 that deals with competitive processing grants. That could be a policy decision or policy issue. The lease agreement with Lutheran Services, that's a policy decision. Should we go into lease agreement? And even 2025-175, the comp plan. That's a policy issue. So the administration want to work with you, the incoming rules chair, and incoming leadership, so we can get on the same page, because it's all about moving Jacksonville forward.
Yeah, and the competitive grant process one did seem like a policy issue to me, and during legislative services, I made sure that the council director had gotten formal agreement by the council president to put on the agenda, because I think things that are budget transfer and internal decisions and administrative policies and stuff, it's the mayor's discretion. If it needs to go for vote, put it on there, whatever. But I think if they're policies, you kind of need one of the 19 to formally say, I'll carry that weight for you. Just simply because, I mean, that's to stay on the right side of the law, right? Because we're the policy-making body. And so I think for certain aspects of that, we'll probably work together with the administration under new leadership and clarify and make sure we're moving forward. So thanks for bringing that up. And then back to all the nice comments. Thank you to everybody. But it really could not be done without a really strong committee and an exceptionally strong staff. And Miss Amber Lehman keeping us in charge. So thank you to you guys, and really appreciate it. And with that, we are adjourned.